Yeah, you can drink coffee. Hey, good morning. Welcome to the WSJM Morning Show video live stream. I'm Ken Lundberg, and it is Wednesday, October 23rd, and our special guest in studio this morning is none other than Lori Marciniak, the Executive Director for the Curious Kids Museum. Good morning, Lori. How are you?
Good morning. I'm great.
It's thank you so much for coming in.
Of course.
And thank you so much for wearing those earrings. Here, show the people on the video live stream. What do we have there?
It's spooky season.
That is really cool.
We have my skulls.
How many different Halloween themed earrings would you say you have?
Probably at least one for every day in October.
See,
I like spooky season.
I love it. Do you like horror movies?
No.
Really?
Really?
Oh, so you like spooky season, but you don't like the horror movies.
No.
I was looking at a listing. I love horror movies.
Okay.
Love horror movies. But I was looking at the listing of the most searched horror movies by state the other day, and would you guess Michigan's? Well, you're not a horror movie fan, so Evil Dead. You know, because you got local people, yes. Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell. The most searched horror movie for Texas. Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You got it exactly right. And for Maine, I think it was a Stephen King movie. I don't know. Sure. Maybe it was Misery, something like that. But anyway, good morning, and thank you for joining us on the video live stream. If you miss any part of the interview, you can always go back and watch it. A lot of people do this. Just go back and watch the video on our video archive. Just go to Facebook. That's the easiest way to do it. Click on videos, and you can find our video stash there. We will catch up with the rest of ABC News here right now. We'll get our local news, and then we'll come back and begin this interview with Lori Marciniak. She's the Executive Director for the Curious Kids Museum. That's coming up in just a moment.
Free inspection and up to 30% off at leaffilter.com/listen. See representative for warranty details.
Trouble brewing at Starbucks. The coffee giant is now suspending its financial guidance for the next year after missing earnings and sales expectations. New CEO Brian Nichols says everything from the menu to the layout of its stores needs to be reviewed. New research pointing to possibly an early sign of a concussion. A study published in the medical journal Diagnostics says rapidly shaking your head back and forth after a hit in the head could be a possible symptom. Experts say a lot more research, however, is needed. He was a man at the center of Fernando Mania. Dodgers pitcher turned broadcaster Fernando Valenzuela has died. Dodgers announcer Vin Scully in the summer of '81 after Valenzuela threw a shutout against the Mets.
He is the talk of the baseball world in English and Spanish and any other language that's close at hand. Fernando Valenzuela.
More from ABC's Kurt Sandoval on his 1981 rookie season.
If you're too young to remember Fernando Valenzuela when he pitched and his dominance to Major League Baseball and what Fernando Mania represented, consider this. This year in baseball, just one pitcher threw 2 complete games. When Fernando pitched, not only were his first 8 games wins, they were all complete games.
Valenzuela, who won a Cy Young Award, was 63. The FAA putting us a step closer to flying taxis. It's published final regulations for what it calls the air travel of the future. This is ABC News.
Not valid in all states or where prohibited by law. Loans are subject to lender approval. See website for details.
Meet Brian. He just got $5,000, and it was pretty easy. I'll tell you how in 10 seconds. Brian needed cash help. After being rejected by banks, he tried 27cash.com. Told them how much he needed, even let them know he had bad credit. In minutes, 27cash.com found a lender who deposited $5,000 into his bank account the very next day. If you need cash help, even if you have bad credit, go to 27cash.com. 27cash.com.
WSJM News Now. Team coverage from the WSJM Newsroom on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM.
7:05 is the time. It's the WSJM Morning Show. Good morning. I'm Ken Lundberg. It is the 23rd day of October. Just 8 days. 8 days until Halloween. The trick-or-treat events are all over the place. We'll be talking about that later on this morning and this week. But some of the news that we're following today, from the WSJM Newsroom, the Michigan Department of Transportation is nearing completion of year 1 of the massive I-94 project that's affecting our area. It's a 3-year $205 million investment in rebuilding 5 miles of I-94, including replacement of 4 bridges, plus repairs on 9 others. This year's work included rebuilding the I-94 interchange at Exit 23, Red Arrow Highway. It was initially expected to be complete before Thanksgiving, but as things happen, MDOT spokesperson Nick Shrippa says the work will likely extend into December.
Already done most of the I-94 work between Washington Avenue and Putz Road. So we are, I'll say, a month, maybe 2 months away. We had a bit of a delay. We had some issues with the bridge beams. Likely this will push it back. Originally we were thinking about being done before Thanksgiving, but if all goes well, we'll be done well before Christmas.
While construction has caused ongoing traffic issues, area businesses are hopeful that this will pay off in the long run. AM Cafe manager Lisa Ranson in Stevensville tells us the construction has been an inconvenience for sure, but they're hopeful that the wait is going to be worth it.
I mean, right now, as the construction's getting done or worked on right now, it is a negative towards the businesses because they can't get off the highway. But once it's finished, I think it's going to be great for Stevensville. It's going to look really nice.
Next Tuesday and Wednesday, Red Arrow Highway will be closed at I-94 while crews set beams for the eastbound bridge over Red Arrow Highway. The eastbound I-94 ramp is expected to be closed until mid-November, with traffic detoured onto Marquette Woods. Southbound traffic will be detoured via southbound I-94 exit 22. Voters in Benton Harbor have requested absentee ballots at a high rate this year. Speaking to the Benton Harbor City Commission this week, City Clerk Tiffany Moore said some absentee ballots have already been returned. She tells any residents who haven't yet sent in their absentee ballot or who just received them to drop those off after you fill them out at City Hall in person.
Bring it to our office, put it in the drop box outside, just to avoid a delay in the mail, especially if you requested one and it's just gone out the next couple days. Please just bring it back in. We don't want to have late ballots come in. We want all of your votes to count.
Moore said about 50% of the more than 1,050 absentee ballots issued in the city have been returned so far. She also reminded everyone they can vote absentee in person at City Hall through Friday. Then starting on Saturday, early in-person voting will be taken over by the Berrien County Clerk's Office, and it'll be held at different locations. The early voting for residents in the northern half of Berrien County will be at Lake Michigan College, while residents in the southern half of the county can go to Berrien County South County Building on North Front Street in Niles. However, independent of that, residents of Benton Township and Bainbridge Township, if you want to early vote, you'll have to go to your township offices to vote early. Construction has started on a new rain garden in Three Oaks. Three Oaks Parks and Recreation Board Chair Ira Johnson tells us it's being installed right next to the Village Hall to help improve stormwater management, prevent erosion, and create a natural habitat for wildlife.
There was a drainage problem on the north side of the building because of an asphalt driveway that was not used much and was pretty old, so stormwater was puddling there, and it was doing a bit of damage to the building.
A rain garden, essentially a hole in the ground that water can drain into, and a planted garden area where the vegetation can filter the water and survive the inundation of heavy rains. In this case, the rain garden is about 30 feet long. Johnson says a team of volunteers is coming in soon to plant the vegetation and the flowers to keep the things green.
The beauty will come fairly quickly because it's mostly perennials, and they're pollinator perennials that draw bees and butterflies, and therefore larval stages of butterflies and moths that feed birds, so there'll be more birds.
Johnson says another benefit of the rain garden is that it will enhance the nearby Chamberlain Path, which takes people all around downtown attractions in Three Oaks. He's going to be outside the Three Oaks Village Hall this Saturday during the Halloween celebration to answer questions from the public about the project, which is expected to be finished in a couple of weeks. The project cost estimated to be about $15,000. And we are learning more about changes coming to the Heritage Museum and Cultural Center in St. Joseph. WSJM's Andrew Green has this update.
The Heritage Museum will no longer be running St. Joseph Lighthouse tours for the city. The Heritage announced it's selling its building at 601 Main Street to the Curious Kids Museum last week and reimagining itself. Heritage Board Treasurer Sven Eriksson tells us as part of the coming changes, the museum is stepping away from its role organizing the Lighthouse tours. It informed the city of St. Joseph last week. The city has already identified a couple of potential options to take over the tours and will let people know once an arrangement's been made. Meanwhile, as the Heritage prepares to leave its home, Erickson says it's hired a doctoral student from Notre Dame to sort through its massive archives and catalog everything. Items not deemed significant will be returned to those who donated them or given to other organizations, while the Heritage maintains archives of essential materials and stores them securely. Erickson notes that the museum will receive money from the building sale and has a substantial endowment, putting it in a good position for change. He tells us the changes coming to the Heritage Museum will be a good thing, making the more than 60-year-old institution more effective. Andrew Green, WSJM News.
60 degrees in Benton Harbor under cloudy skies, 61 in St. Joseph, 57 in South Haven. In New Buffalo, it's 60 degrees and 56 in Dowagiac. So cloudy all around Southwest Michigan. And again, we're heading toward a high of around 64 degrees in our area this morning. We've got sports right now with Dave Wolf. We also have our interview coming up with Lori Marciniak, Executive Director of Curious Kids Museum. That starts in just a few moments right here on the WSJM Morning Show.
Tuesday night in the NHL, all 32 teams.
And while we listen to the sports report, we're going to talk with Lori Marciniak here. Good morning, Lori.
Good morning.
Tell me are you a native to the area?
I am. I grew up in Sister Lakes and went to Dowagiac High School.
Did you?
I did.
Are you a fan? Let me ask you this, because this is exclusive content that I don't know that I'm ready. I'm ready to talk about on the radio, but on our video live stream, which, only people on YouTube and Facebook can see that. So you grew up in Dowagiac area, and you say it, the correct pronunciation is?
Dowagiac.
Dowagiac, yes. Are you a fan of ABC network television, the Odyssey show, the new Odyssey show? It's like a reboot of The Love Boat, except a little bit racier.
Yeah, I don't own a TV.
Okay, you don't own a TV?
I don't own a
She
TV.
is so smart. You are fantastic. Well, okay, so there's this TV thing, and there are these networks, and they have shows.
Yes, I remember. Back in the day, I remember. Yes,
They mispronounced Dowagiac
I'm sure.
3 times.
I'm sure. Yeah,
But one of the characters called it their hometown. It was really bad. I'll talk about it on Friday, but we've got to get back to the airways here. Okay. Hang on a second.
Tomorrow, our next chance of rain rolls in on Friday. I'm WSBT 22 Chief Meteorologist Carrie Peugeot.
The Morning Show with Ken and Friends on 94.9 WSJM.
Good morning and welcome to the WSJM Morning Show for Wednesday, October 23rd. I'm Ken Lundberg. We have a special guest. It's Ken and Friends on the WSJM Morning Show. And so I'd like to call you my friend. Lori Marciniak is here today. She's the executive director of the Curious Kids Museum. And, a little birdie mentioned to me at some point over the last few weeks, you might want to talk to Lori.
Really?
Well, because we have
small town news,
the small town news, and we have, we feel like we're connected from time to time. But and then you said you agreed graciously to come on the show, and then Friday you had this huge announcement this last Friday. So before we get into all of that and deconstruct that, maybe you can, for those who don't know who Lori Marciniak is, please, would you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about you, your background. And I know a little bit about your background, so I'm going to probe you if you don't give the details here. So go ahead.
Well, I did grow up in this area. I grew up in Sister Lakes. Went to Dowagiac High School. Went away to college at Michigan Tech.
Okay.
I played basketball up there. I guess you can see by my amazing height.
Yes. You and Caitlin Clark right up there.
No.
Okay.
Anyway, and so I got my engineering degree and was an electrical engineer for 27 years.
Wow.
And then
what does an electrical engineer do?
Well, at the time that I was an electrical engineer, which is, back when dinosaurs probably still roamed the earth.
Oh, dear.
I worked at Zenith Data Systems and I wrote BIOS code for computers to boot up.
Okay.
And then I was in the test group. So we wrote code to test the computer before it got shipped.
Okay.
Super fun.
Did you work over on Hilltop?
I did.
Okay.
Yep. And
I worked on Hilltop at 211 Hilltop. Yeah.
Oh.
For Whirlpool Corporation for a few years.
Yeah.
But
so anyway, that was an amazing career. Okay. And then they got sold to Packard Bell and I was offered a job in California. Didn't want to leave Michigan, love Michigan. So kind of trying to figure out what I want to do. And a board member of the Curious Kids Museum said that their executive director was retiring. Would I be interested? And I said, no. My issue is, I worked with, I had like 75 men in my organization. I was director of engineering for a while, and I probably didn't have a mouth that should be in a children's museum.
Oh, dear.
So anyway,
That's funny.
But I interviewed and they offered me the position and I got to thinking about it and thought, man, this could be really, really fun as a second career. There's still some engineering that goes on. Exhibit design is really incredible these days. And we work with a company in Minneapolis, Kidzibits. And so I still get to at least ask questions about exhibits and understand how they're being designed. And when they get delivered, if something goes wrong, I can usually at least be a semi-intelligent voice on this end to help troubleshoot.
I would love to be a fly on the wall when a former electrical engineer is asking questions of the person delivering. So is this animatronic going to work right? Have you flashed the EEPROM BIOS thing recently?
Yeah, I actually do get to update the code in the little Raspberry Pis that are in there controlling things sometimes.
That is so cool.
It's so fun, yeah.
Is it amazing to you how far technology has advanced? So when you were working in Zenith, describe, because I don't think a lot of people who are new to the area for sure know what was happening at the Zenith building at Hilltop. What was happening in there? You were building laptops.
Oh, absolutely. We built like the first laptop ever, and everything that went on in the computer was a discrete component, a different chip, a parallel port chip, a serial port chip. And so we had to make all those things talk, and then we had to put in a surface mount line to build boards, which, all the components were then surface mounted, not drilled through the computer board, the circuit board. So it's just, it was a fun time to be in the computer industry because things were changing so fast. And
So you go from that to the Raspberry Pi, which, if people don't know, just a brief explanation, it's like a couple of chips.
And it's like a, $10 chip that can do what, thousands of dollars used to be. Yeah, it was so cool. It's just so fun.
Yeah. And so you were asked to interview for the position. You interview for the position. What was that? Do you remember that interview?
Yeah, I'm a lot for people. I go in, I pulled all their 990s. I had spreadsheets. I had, because that's how my mind thinks. I'm very
numbers,
mathematical.
Data.
And I sat down. I'm like, okay, I just want you to know I'm not for everyone. They're like, are you trying to get this job? I'm like, I don't know, but I want you to know what you're getting because I can be a lot.
Yeah.
But so the job has kind of mellowed me too. Kids are amazing.
Yeah.
They're curious. I know that's cliche since we're the Curious Kids Museum, but they ask the best questions and the most honest questions. They all the time, mom, she has blue hair. She has blue hair. She has blue hair. And the moms are kind of looking away, and I'm like, it's okay. I meant to have blue hair, but it's just so fun. And they want to know how things work, and they use things every way but how it's supposed to be used, which is amazing. You watch, like, as adults, we think this is going to be the most fun exhibit because you're going to do A, B, and C, and the kids always do X, Y, and Z. And it's just amazing to see how they look at it and then to see it through their eyes.
Yeah. Let's talk about that a little bit. The Curious Kids Museum, what's the idea behind it? How did it come to be?
So 35 years ago, the original board of directors wanted a place that kids could come and just be kids and play, and to augment like classroom learning. Some kids just don't learn sitting in a chair, listening to somebody tell them what they need to know. So to give a child a hands-on way to explore, and also a place where kids can be wrong, maybe not back 35 years ago, but certainly today we try to, make sure kids know the test. They get the right test scores, that they, after school, they go to violin, then they go to gymnastics, then they go to soccer. We want the kids to have all these experiences, but it's very programmed and very guided. And in a children's museum, we want the kids to fail because then they can figure out how to do something different. And I'm not really saying they're failing because there's really no right or wrong answer for any exhibit. Certainly every exhibit has a prescribed way to play with it and an intent, but we also try to build in other ways to explore and just let the kids figure it out. There's not a lot of signage. Obviously, a lot of our customers can't read yet, but we don't really want a lot of signage. And sometimes that frustrates people. They'll ask a floor staff, well, what are we supposed to do? You're supposed to have a great time, interact with your child, and just explore and learn. So it's really a place where a child can have a lot of different learning domains. You can do things, fine motor, gross motor, cognitive. You want to be able to just maybe watch people, the littlest customers, that's their mode of learning right now, is to just watch and learn. And some parents will be like, well, he really didn't do anything. No, he did exactly what was age appropriate for that learning at 2 or 18 months, to watch other people and mimic what they're doing. So it's just super interesting to see the different age groups, the different ways children learn. Some are very auditory, some are very visual. Some have incredible fine and gross motor skills for their age, and some can't walk across the floor without falling. So, and that's all normal and okay and wonderful. And so we just, it's just so much fun to be in that environment.
How do you know when the kids are doing what you hope that they're supposed to be doing, being curious, being kids, learning?
We call that internally staying power.
Okay.
When someone stays in an exhibit for more than 10 seconds.
Yeah.
If you have something that's, we don't have a lot of electronics. We talked about the Raspberry Pis,
Sure.
and there certainly are some, but we try not to have a lot of electronics because our electronics is so pervasive in our society, and
Yes.
kids have a lot of access to it, but they don't have a lot of access to giant blue blocks that are bigger than them that they can try to build and knock down, and nobody's going to get hurt, and they're not going to hurt anything in our facility. And they don't always get to touch everything. It's always don't touch, keep your hands to yourself. And we want them to touch everything. So to see an exhibit where kids won't leave, we know we've hit it out of the park.
That's amazing. We're talking with Lori Marciniak. She's the executive director of the Curious Kids Museum. And one of the things that when you and I first met, it was in the wake of the fire that had happened in Memorial Hall.
Yes.
And tell us a little bit about that. What happened?
So on the 5th of July, 2022, we came into work. We were closed the 4th of July. And that night, I don't know if people remember, I certainly remember because, it's indelibly etched in my head.
Yeah.
We had a crazy electrical storm. And so we came in, and being an electrical engineer, I have burned up enough boards in my life. I walked in and immediately smelled an electrical something.
Yeah, that smells bad.
And so there was about 3 other employees in the building, and I went upstairs, and I was at the gym at 6:30, and our IT guy had called me and said, "Hey, your server is not communicating." Our point of sale system is web-based, and so he always knows that in the summer when we're crazy packed, if our point of sale system isn't working, I can't collect money. I can't let people in, right?
Yeah.
So he was telling me at 6:30 there's no communication. I'm like, all right, I'll hurry up, I'll get there. So I get there a little early, kind of prepared to reboot the server, figure something out. But I got to the top of the stairs, and I looked across the gallery, and it was just haze. And I, smelled immediately when I walked in. And I just yelled for all of the employees to get out. Our front desk person, Becky Spears, said, "Do you want me to call 911?" I said, "Yes." We got out, and, thankfully we're very close to the fire station, and St. Joe responded amazingly and quickly. And literally 30 seconds later, there's sirens. And so I didn't think really anything of it. I just thought,
because you didn't see flames.
nothing, no real rolling
Yeah.
smokes, no open flames. So I didn't really think so. We're kind of joking outside, they all have the little ear things, and I'm joking about the Secret Service, and, they're all talking to each other. And I'm like, okay, just don't put any water on it. Right. Cause I don't want to ruin any exhibits. We're kind of, and then all of a sudden they have the ladder truck, and they're punching holes in the roof, and he looks at me and he talks again. I'm like, oh, something's really awful. And he says, yeah, there's flames in the attic space. And then it was terrible.
Yeah.
You just watched all the foam and all the water. So really the fire damage was very localized. We think it was an electrical strike or a lightning strike, and that it smoldered most of the night. And then we probably opened
the doors and that
fed
fanned the flames, just like backdraft.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the water and foam was just devastating. I mean, the fire was up on the 3rd floor, and it just ran all the way through to the basement, and ruined so much. And it was right after the 16-month pandemic closure, and then we were closed 16 months again for the fire. It was unbelievable. I mean, I just couldn't believe it.
Just before you reopened, I think that's when you and I first started talking, and you took me up to the area where the fire started, probably up in the ceiling there, and it still smelled.
I know.
It was like 16 months later, it still smelled of electrical fire.
Yeah.
But and it's a beautiful old building.
Oh, it's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Tell us maybe just before we break here for news, tell us just a little bit about how Curious Kids got into that. And then also after the break, after we go to news at 7:30, want to come back and talk a little bit about that fire was really a changing point in how Curious Kids perhaps was imagining itself.
Yes.
But how did you get into Memorial Hall?
So the building was dedicated in, I think, 1915. It was built for the Grand Army of the Republic, for the troops in the Civil War. So that's why it's called Memorial Hall.
Yes.
And after it was that for many years, in the 60s, it was owned by the federal government, donated to the city of St. Joe, and it no longer needed to be like an FOP lodge, or that it wasn't an FOP, but you know what I mean. That's the kind of building it was. And so they tried many different businesses. There was a ballet school, there was a dog training area, and nothing really stuck. And 36 years ago, this group of people in St. Joe wanted to start a children's museum, did a study with Lake Michigan College, figured out that we could support a children's museum in this area. So they approached the city, and the city said yes. And they renovated, kind of on a shoestring budget, and made it into much bigger spaces for children to explore, handmade a bunch of exhibits, and opened the doors in October of 1989.
And then it operated as that.
Yes, and
until,
in 97 built an addition, 1997 built an addition because they were outgrowing. Not only could the area support it, they needed more. And then in 2010, we opened the Discovery Zone down below the bluff for even more expansion.
Yeah. Okay. And so we'll talk kind of pause there, and we'll have to come back. We'll talk about what happened next after the fire and lead us up to what's happening today, which is really exciting news for the Curious Kids Museum. We're talking with Lori Marciniak. She's the executive director of the Curious Kids Museum in St. Joseph. It's 7/27, October 23rd, Wednesday. Good morning. I'm Ken Lundberg. It's the WSJM Morning Show. We're going to continue this interview on our Facebook and our YouTube in just a moment here. We're also going to get you some Bloomberg news here on the radio. That's coming up after this break right here on WSJM.
Would you call free checking that pays you cash back on purchase?
Do that. I get to press a lot of buttons every day. It's like I'm a curious kid around this museum.
Exactly.
But no, thank you so much. Are we doing all right so far?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Well, you tell me, am I?
Yeah, you're doing great. You mentioned your blue hair. And for those of you on the video live stream, you can see that. Why blue?
I don't know.
Okay.
And it's been that way for probably 10 years.
See, you did it before Jack White did it.
I did it before it was cool, yeah. And I have blue eyes, so maybe it was that. I don't really know, but it's funny how people will say, do you remember that time you had it pink? Or do you remember that time you had it green? I've never had it pink. And I'm like, no.
No.
Oh, yeah, don't you? So, always blue.
Yeah, well, I don't know what to say about it. What's politically correct these days, but I think it looks great.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, you're welcome.
I like it.
Tell us why you don't have a TV.
I just think it's a waste of time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I think that it gets people sucked in. I understand entertainment, and I have an iPad and I do watch a few things.
Yeah.
But I just think there's other things I want to do with my life. And, if I walk in and sit down for an hour, I could have taken the dogs for a walk. I could have, done something else. So it's dumb. I know.
No, it's not dumb at all.
I'm not a good relaxer is the problem. I'm not a good vacationer. I like to,
As long as you know yourself and what kind of where you go to decompress or do whatever you enjoy, I think that's great. That's great. No, I had a similar, I watch too much TV, and truth be known, I probably play too many video games, but I have fun doing it.
Sure.
But I will tell you, there was a time many years ago when I saw this craze happening about Guitar Hero. You've seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
I played with my kids.
Okay.
A long time ago.
So I saw that happening, and I thought, rather than do that, rather than buy that, I'm going to go buy myself a real guitar.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reason I wanted to play Guitar Hero, or did at the time, is because I wanted to play guitar. And I picked up the guitar. I haven't put it down since. I love it. I love playing guitar. Haven't looked back. And I really
love that.
Yeah, it's it. And I think the other thing about it is I like that you don't have a lot of electronics in the Curious Kids Museum, because kids get exposed to so many electronics these days.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Sometimes a kid will come in and kind of run through the place, and the parent will say, well, there's really nothing to do here.
Oh my goodness.
And the kids, they need to learn, once again, to play. They need to learn cooperative play. That's in our mission statement, to, kids to play with each other, to just kind of happen upon somebody and say, hey, let's figure this out together. There's so much collaboration in business these days that, people don't even have offices. They have collaborative spaces that they all work together.
Right.
And so, we want to show kids that it's okay to talk to, not a stranger, but, another kid and organize some play and figure things out together. So
Yeah, working together. Who knew? Humans and stuff.
could actually talk.
Has have you noticed anything different post-pandemic about how kids are behaving?
Right after the pandemic, the preschoolers really had no gross motor skills. It was
Explain for those who don't know, what is a gross motor skill?
it's walking across the floor. When kids are in preschool or even kindergarten and they go to gym class, they're not doing incredible organized sports. They have a foam balance beam that they're walking across. They have little foam stones that they're jumping to, or they're throwing balls at each other, not at each other, but
Right.
to each other.
Sure.
And that was an amazing miss during the pandemic. And kids literally couldn't walk across the floor. The little guy. It was amazing to us how noticeable it was.
Yeah.
So you talk about things that kids do in schools that you may think are insignificant. And it was very significant. Also, like the 1-year-olds to 15 months old, when they came in, they would just stare at your face because they had only seen masked faces.
Oh, yeah.
And so it was very interesting I always have bright lipstick on, and they would just focus and they just hadn't seen it, And so we see so many children at once. It becomes very apparent to us, the big delays and misses when something like, we obviously didn't have that experience ever, thankfully. But we were all like, oh my gosh, did you notice this or did you notice that? So
are they rebounding?
Oh, absolutely.
Will that pop up somewhere else where we don't expect it?
I don't know. That age group is, pretty interesting to follow. Well, every age group, obviously they all missed it, but those young ones who didn't see faces and didn't really have interaction, very, very shy, very, very aware of people they don't know. Whereas normally they come in and they're just ready to go. And if they'll grab your hand, and if mom's paying and you'll take them to play, they don't care, but they were very tentative after that.
Yeah. All right. We have to get back on the radio here just a moment.
WSJM.
Have you thought about having a radio exhibit?
We have a radio. Well, we did pre-fire. I'm actually talking to Zach about getting that back.
Oh, really?
So,
okay. Zach East. He's on so many radio stations. Don't have him doing it.
Okay.
Have me doing it.
Okay,
I think it'd be a lot of fun.
Absolutely.
We're talking with Lori Marciniak. She's the executive director of the Curious Kids Museum. We're going to continue our interview with her in just a few moments. The weather forecast for today does look like it's going to be another nice day. I mean, if you enjoy this kind of unseasonably warm, we're going to get more seasonable, but today's forecast does call for partly sunny skies, breezy conditions, a high around 64 degrees, northwest winds 10 to 15 miles per hour with gusts again up to 25. Tonight's forecast, mostly clear and cool, and a low around 38 degrees. The winds are going to calm down a little bit, light northwest winds. Thursday's forecast, partly sunny skies, a high around 60, and south winds at 5 miles per hour. We're going to get the latest from ABC World and National News right now. Then we're going to check our local news from the WSJM newsroom. It's right here on WSJM.
ABC News, I'm Sherry Preston. South Korea's spy chief has told lawmakers that North Korea has sent another 1,500 troops to Russia in support of the war in Ukraine. Last week, the National Intelligence Service confirmed there were 1,500 North Korean special ops forces already there.
What exactly they're doing, left to be seen. These are things that we need to sort out.
Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin says it's an indication Vladimir Putin may be in more trouble than most people realize. Donald Trump's former chief of staff, retired General John Kelly, tells the New York Times that Trump admires dictators and praised Adolf Hitler while in office.
So he certainly falls into the general definition of fascist, for sure.
Trump will be in Georgia today campaigning. Kamala Harris back in Pennsylvania less than 2 weeks until the election. American Airlines is being fined $25 million for how it treated disabled customers, including in an unsafe and undignified manner. The fine also for mishandling wheelchairs. This is ABC News.
WSJM News Now. Team coverage from the WSJM newsroom on News Talk Sports 94.9 WSJM.
It's 60 degrees and cloudy skies in Benton Harbor and St. Joseph and in New Buffalo right now. Buchanan reporting 58 degrees and cloudy and 56 and cloudy skies in South Haven. Good morning. Thanks for listening to the WSJM Morning Show. I'm Ken Lundberg. We continue our interview with Lori Marciniak in just a few moments. She's the executive director of the Curious Kids Museum. They have a big move coming. They just bought a building, which is really cool. So we'll talk about that and more in just a few minutes. First off, some of the news that we're following today from the WSJM newsroom. The Pokagon Band of Potawatomi has been awarded a $5 million federal climate pollution reduction grant from the Environmental Protection Agency. The purpose to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. We'll hear from Tribal Chair Matthew Weesaw, who tells us the funds are going to be used on the tribal properties to help make a lot of things they do greener. We'll talk about that. The city of Bridgman has been awarded a $158,000 grant from the Michigan Shared Streets and Spaces program to develop a new public space downtown. City manager Juan Ganum tells us that the Bridgman side yard is the empty space right next to the new Bridgman courtyard on Lake Street. He says since the city finished the courtyard, people have been asking him what's going to be done with that empty space right there next to the courtyard. So we'll talk about that. They have plans. Now they have money, so we'll be talking how they're going to construct that soon. And then also a portion of South Haven is once again under a boil water advisory. The South Haven Water Sewer Authority has put out notice last night that it's effective immediately. This advisory is in place in the areas of Sunset Drive and LaGrange Street. This is the third boil advisory announced this month. The South Haven Water Sewer Authority would not comment on the cause of the most recent issue, but at least one previous order was due to a water main being damaged during fiber optic installation. Crews are in the process right now of making repairs. More news coming up at 8 o'clock this morning from the WSJM newsroom. It's 7:37. We've got sports coming up after a look at state news.
The Michigan News Network.
And good morning. Continuing our interview here on the WSJM Morning Show. I'm stretching over here, sorry, Lori, to look at our comments on our video live stream. Let's see what we have here. Diane says, good morning, John and all. Have a good day. Good morning, Diane. Bill says, good morning, guys. I'm a guy. A gentleman and a lady are in here today, Bill. Good morning, Teresa says as well. It's a beautiful building. She's talking about Memorial Hall, I think. She might be talking about Heritage as well. Let's see. Teresa Yor says, my nieces and nephews were little. All they ever wanted to do was go to the Curious Kids Museum. She says, whenever they came into my mom's store, because her mom had a store in St. Joseph. And so all they wanted to do was go to the Curious Kids Museum. That's all they wanted to do. Let's see. Oh, and Teresa also says she can take this kind of weather all year long, which is fine. It's good weather.
Yeah. It could be a little cooler.
I would like it a little cooler. Yeah, the wardrobe guessing that I do every day, it's not working.
And when you leave in the morning and then go outside, it's like, oh, I'm overdressed or underdressed or I know.
Yeah, did that yesterday.
Yeah.
But we're talking with Lori Marciniak. So we'll talk about the plans and kind of that pinpoint decision in just a few moments. But Memorial Hall, what is going to happen to it? You have 22 years left on the lease. Is that right?
21 and change.
21 and change?
Mm-hmm.
What are you going to do with that building?
We're going to reimagine what we can do with that building.
Okay.
We've got some ideas for some, exhibits, some after school programs, some,
okay.
Still children's museum activities.
That's exciting.
But we'll certainly talk to the city about that. I think they also have thoughts. And so, they've been very good to us as landlords, and we want to work with them on, the next steps. So
that's great. Okay.
We haven't been able to discuss all of that until the news was out. So the next couple of weeks for me will be very busy talking to a lot of people. So.
Was that difficult keeping kind of the plan under wraps until it was appropriate to start talking about it?
Yeah, we had a couple of spots where we were going to announce it, and then, we'd have to try to solve another issue or negotiate another point or whatever. And so by the time we got to the point where we thought we could announce, we were literally, I think, 12 days away from our big gala, our big fundraising event. And so we thought, let's tell our donors first,
Yeah.
So it had things, kind of wrapped up quicker. It might have come out before then, but I really like the way we announced it.
Good.
So it was
Good.
Very fun.
And maybe describe that for the viewers here. How did that announcement come out on Friday?
So
where was it? How was it?
So
all
we
that?
were at Shadowland Ballroom, which is really nice to have our fundraising gala in a partner space. The 3 partners down at the Silver Beach Center, us, the Curious Kids Discovery Zone, the Shadowland Ballroom, and the Carousel. So every few years, we always try to have it down there. And so having it in our space, showing our donors what they're supporting in the Discovery Zone and the museum. So we worked with Carmi Design Group out of Niles, and they did some mock-ups of what it could be. It's not exactly maybe how it'll end up, but we wanted to show people what we might be able to do to the exterior of the Priscilla Burns Center to make it look fun and like a children's museum. So we're able to show that rendering and discuss the move and the purchase. And
how did they receive it?
oh my gosh, people were
What did
so
they say?
excited.
Yeah.
It was very, very surprising. I thought maybe it had gotten out to some people. So the audible gasp in the room and then the cheers. I mean, it was so fun.
Yeah.
I mean, and these are a lot of our, donors that are with us through thick and thin. And so to be able to tell them first, and they followed the journey of, the pandemic and the fire and all the closures and the reimagining and the hope that we would purchase Memorial Hall, and then it was perfect.
Yeah, that's great. And so then since then, how has the reaction been from fans of Curious Kids?
Very, very good. I mean, I think people got very excited, as we did, to expand and to reimagine new exhibits.
Yeah.
And then it was, a little bit of a letdown. But we had decided to just focus on getting the museum back open, because there are lots of kids like your listeners, nieces and nephews, that just can't wait to get back. And so so that's been amazing too, just to get it open and to kind of step back and take a breath. And now this is just wonderful.
So I drove by, I think it was yesterday, because I wanted to see the lake, because I saw some of those storm clouds coming in. I wanted to see the lake, see what was happening, if it was going to rain or not. But as I drove by Curious Kids Museum, I looked out and I saw the view of the lake. Is that so in the future that you're imagining for that location, do you see yourself there in the long term?
We would love to. I mean, we certainly have capacity to do a lot more for a lot more people.
Yeah.
It's just what those activities are, and if it fits in the building, and if the city agrees that that's a good fit. So, our current lease says we have to operate a children's museum there, and certainly we would be operating children's museum and other activities. And so as long as that's amenable to all parties, yes, and that location is amazing.
You've been around the nation. You've seen other children's museums. You know what kind of the transformation, the evolution, the cutting edge of what museums are. What is a museum? What should it be?
It should just be a place where kids want to be, where kids can be themselves, where they can, show their imagination, they can explore, and it shouldn't be so prescribed and so guided that it isn't fun. Kids learn through play, and they don't get a lot of that. As I said before, that we have school and we have practices, and those are all great things. They're wonderful things. But back in the day, when kids would just go outside in the morning and play half the day and come home for lunch, and those days are gone. And I understand a lot of the reasoning for that. But they need to learn to coordinate with other children. They need to learn to play with other children. They need to learn to figure things out, and for it not to work. And that would drive them to want it to work the next time. We used to have a super speedway where they built cars, and they could build really long cars and really tall cars and really heavy cars and really light cars. And that would all affect the speed and whether or not it actually made it down the track. And that was by design. And kids always thought they had to be the fastest. And so I would wander out on the floor and make this ridiculous car that was so tall and heavy and long. And I would race them, and they'd be like, I won. And I'm like, oh, no. We were trying to build the slowest car. And then the light bulb just goes on.
Yeah.
And so those are the kind of things that we want to spur in kids, that there's lots of ways to skin the cat, lots of ways to play and to explore.
Love it. We're talking with Lori Marciniak, Executive Director of the Curious Kids Museum. We'll continue this interview in just a moment, right after we get a check of weather from WSBT.
Mostly cloudy skies this morning, then sunny and cool this afternoon. High temperatures will be in the low 60s. That happens around middle of the day, and then we'll drop into the 50s this afternoon. We keep dropping tonight. Clear skies, we drop down to 38, and sunny and highs only near 60 tomorrow. Our next chance of rain rolls in on Friday. I'm WSBT 22 Chief Meteorologist Carrie Peugeot.
The Morning Show with Ken Lundberg on WSJM.
It's 7:45, just 15 minutes before 8 o'clock. Good morning. Thanks for joining us on the WSJM Morning Show. Cloudy skies as you start your day, cloudy and 60 degrees all around, at least Benton Harbor, St. Joseph, New Buffalo. Buchanan is recording about 58 degrees, and South Haven, it's 56 degrees right now. We're continuing our interview with Lori Marciniak. She is the executive director of the Curious Kids Museum. We've learned about her background. We learned a bit about the mission and the history of the Curious Kids Museum in St. Joseph. We got all the way up to the 2022 fire, which really is I don't know, to me, it seems like a pivot point of really putting a stake in the ground and understanding what can our future be. So what in 2022 after the fire, what were you thinking and what did you develop as a way forward?
Right before the fire, we had pretty much just completed replacing every exhibit in the entire memorial
Just
hall.
before the fire?
Just before the fire.
Oh, goodness.
And so they were all professionally built exhibits. We had, found donors to, exhibits are very expensive. They're anywhere between $80,000 to $400,000
Wow.
each. Yes.
Is that because they have to be kid proof?
Kid proof and fail safe. And, like 75,000 people have to touch it a year. And it needs to, and no pinch point, no, every corner has to be rounded. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So, so that was very, very depressing, that we lost all of that. So, we went to the city and the very first meeting, they said, we want you to dream big. And so that was an interesting, perspective.
Dream big.
We thought maybe we just need to get it back open. And so we went back, and my board of directors and I and some of our exhibit managers, we're like, what could this be? And I'm a numbers person, as we've discussed, I always have a spreadsheet for something. And so, we looked at every single day in the summer, we're sold out. We have a lot of tourists that come in this area. Everybody plans at least one day at the museum. And if they happen to have a rainy week, they plan 5 days at the museum. And so we get to looking at numbers, and, you don't want to become too big so that in the middle of February, the place is empty and you can't pay your, operating expenses. But there's a balance there of a little bit bigger, and you could service a lot more people. That revenue would help in those months that, the revenue is down. And so, we kind of did that whole exercise of how big is perfect. What would that sweet spot be to get more people in? And so we worked with an architect, and we said, if we could make this about 13,000 square feet, we think that's kind of the place. We're at about 9,600 right now.
Yeah.
And we looked at the different galleries. We looked at the exhibits that have staying power that we talked about earlier, and what we would want to expand on, and what other exhibits we might want to bring in. Worked with our exhibit company. We put a bubble drawing together of all the different exhibit themes and, the bigger building. And so it was really exciting to say, we hadn't really thought about expanding Memorial Hall. We just try to keep getting better exhibits and try to kind of manage, do we add a half an hour at the beginning of the day and the end of the day to get more people in?
Right.
But this was really a point where we stopped and said, this museum has been in St. Joseph, Michigan for 35 years. At the time, 33. What could it be? And how do we make sure that we don't expand too big so that it fails, but that it's big enough to really service what's going on and be here for 35 more or 50 more? And so it was such an exciting time. We put all of that together. And then it didn't work out. And it's really, lots of people want to say that, it was our fault for not taking the deal, and it was the city's fault for not, just handing us the building. And that really, none of that is, there's really not one person or organization to blame. It just didn't work out. We all have, we have donors that have expectations that didn't agree with part of the deal. The city didn't like some of what we wanted. So it just didn't happen. And that's okay. And my board of directors said, look, we're not going to let go of this dream, but we're going to get the museum open. Our mission is all about children playing and learning, and we need to get back to that and get going. And we did, and it's been wonderful. But we never lost sight of that.
Yeah.
But we do want to be in St. Joseph. That's where we've always been.
Yeah.
Well, where are you going to be? You know, like, are we going to build new? Are we going to find a building? I mean, there's not a lot that's just sitting waiting, you know, that seemed obvious to us. And then the Heritage Museum Board of Directors called and said, you know, we have a building that's too big for us. You want to be in a bigger building. What do you think?
Yeah.
And the interesting point is when we put the plans together for Memorial Hall to expand, it went from 9,647 square feet to 13,300 square feet. And that's exactly the square footage of the Heritage Museum.
No kidding.
Isn't that amazing?
That is very,
yeah.
It seems like it's beyond a coincidence.
Yeah.
That's
It's
great.
amazing. I mean, and it's not built for children right now. You know, it's
Yeah.
got the grand ballroom with
Oh,
the
just
beautiful
wait though.
Oh yeah. So so that's, you know, it's exciting. Also, you know,
That
we
is.
took a building back in 1988 and started to rehab it to make it a children's museum. And there's a lot of really good parts about Memorial Hall, the cut up rooms, you know, in smaller bite-sized pieces. A lot of people say is very quaint and very and wonderful to be line of sight for your kids. Other people think, you know, kids need wide open spaces to explore and learn. So, you know, to be able to have a building that we can then really design the way we would like to see it,
Yeah.
is so exciting.
So what are the next steps? What are you doing right now?
The next steps, we have not completed the purchase. We're hoping to do that by the end of the year.
Okay.
You know, we need to go to the city and talk to them. Any nonprofit needs a special use permit to operate a business out of a building in the city. So we there's details, contingencies, you know, that we want to make sure all of that, you know, we want to make sure the Heritage has their next move ready. You know, they have archives of very historical, very important, very delicate, very wonderful things.
Yes.
So, you know, we want to make sure those get moved to where they need them to be and in the manner in which they need them to be. But at the same time, we have dates too that we want to hit to try to, you know, so we're working through all of that. But if we can finish all of those and check all those boxes by the end of the year, we will put together a capital campaign. The exterior of the building, the size of the building really doesn't need to be altered much. But the big ballroom, you know, we would like to put a partial floor anyway over it, add some square footage. We would also like to get kids up in that space. You know, a lot of people have 2-story living rooms, but can the kids actually get to that ceiling?
Yeah.
You know, it's no fun to have a 20-foot ceiling if the kids can't get up in it. So, you know, we want a safe climbing tower in a corner or something. You know, we want to use the space so that kids can explore and do things they can't do at home. And so lots of design work to be done on the building and then exhibits. You know, we've heard from some people that, you know, we haven't replaced the exhibits in Memorial Hall quite at the rate people would like to see us do. Well, once we were dreaming big, exhibits really need to be designed for the space they're in. Some exhibits have no back. They're up against a wall, and that's a little cheaper to build because you don't have to finish all 360 of the exhibit. Others are put in a space where kids can get all the way around them. Until you know that space, it's a little hard to spend $250,000 on an exhibit and then say, "Oh, we're moving to the Priscilla Burns Center," and now that exhibit doesn't work, and we've, you know, taken money from a donor, and it really wasn't as effectively used as we should have. You know, we try to be very good stewards of our donors' money. So that's been kind of the, you know, and that was one of the things we were talking to the city about. You know, we were trying to get open, but we wanted to order exhibits, but you know, it was the chicken and the egg. You know, we needed to know where we were going. So, you know, we need to get with our exhibit company. We need to get the exhibit design company and the architect together to say, okay, you know, how much space are you going to make with that floor over the ballroom? And, you know, is any of it going to have a wall behind it, or is it all going to be a railing? So they need to know how to, you know, so it's just a lot of coordination. We hope that we could start renovation of the building in March or April of next year. And then in like April or May of 2026, start loading exhibits in and be open for the summer of 26.
Summer of 26.
That would be our ideal plan.
Yeah.
And I know, you know, construction issues and all of that, but if someone says, "What's your pie in the sky?" That's it.
Yeah. All right. We'll conclude this interview in just a moment. We're talking with Lori Marciniak, who's giving us a lot of great information about the Curious Kids Museum next steps. We'll come back in just a moment right here on WSJM.
Think Fink. Andrew Fink. Elect Andrew Fink to the Michigan.
All right. So are you going to have a 3-story Tyrannosaurus Rex?
A 2-story, yes.
2-story?
Seriously.
Okay.
So that's our plan. That's part of the partial floor over the ballroom. We
Yeah.
want to have a 2-story dinosaur. The dinosaur it's on every T-shirt that we make.
Yeah.
All of our fundraisers from the beginning were called Dino Night, and it's just always been kind of a staple, a dinosaur exhibit. So that is something that we had designed into the renovation of Memorial Hall if we were going to do that. And certainly this whole ballroom and really, 2-story ceiling gives us the opportunity to do that. So we'll have a dinosaur peeking over that balcony area, and then lots of activities down below.
That is super exciting.
It is very exciting.
Some of the other exhibits that you plan for that you can't have now? Any sneak peeks, any hints?
We have one called On the Go, and because we sit and look out and there's a train track right below the bluff,
Yeah.
and there's cargo ships that come in that we see all the time.
Yeah.
Michigan in semi trucks, and Michigan is kind of known for that whole transportation in this area. Lots of trucks from Chicago to Detroit, and so we have an exhibit. Actually, it's being built right now. It's going to be installed in Memorial Hall in March.
Okay.
But part of it can't because we don't have the height, and so the rest of it will be installed when we move. So
That's exciting.
Yeah, so that's gonna be kids are gonna be able to have a big almost like ice picks that pick up foam blocks to load the cargo ship. So it's super fun.
Oh man, can I just come down there and hang out?
No, we don't let unaccompanied
All right.
adults in.
No, I can bring a kid.
Oh, you bring a kid, absolutely.
No.
Absolutely.
No, I have 3 boys. My 13-year-old, I feel for him now because we just talked about a national survey of how old can somebody be when they trick or treat. He's 13, but he's taller than me. He's 6 foot.
Yeah.
So he's very excited about trick or treating this year. Samuel is. So I wonder, is he going to be able to do that?
I hope so.
What's the age range for kids at the Curious Kids?
So we say about 2 to 10
Okay.
is really kind of our sweet spot.
Okay.
Under 2, we have a whole toddle area. And again, kids as young as 3 months old come and, just watching others and seeing
Yeah.
colors and seeing shapes moving, that's
learning.
learning.
Yeah.
And we have kids older than 10. If kids would let themselves play, sometimes it's
Be
just not
kids.
cool. It's
Yeah.
it's not cool to be a kid and go to a children's museum. We have older brothers and sisters that come in, rolling their eyes because the little ones want to play, and then pretty soon the parents can't find the 12 or 13-year-old, and they're like totally engrossed in something, and I love that.
Yeah.
So we have adults we have a paper airplane shooter down at the Discovery Zone. So you put this paper airplane. It has to have a piece of paper at the bottom, and there's 2 wheels, and it shoots it out.
Wow.
And we've had dads get so engrossed in that. We're like, hey, where are your kids? They're like, oh my gosh, my wife's going to kill me. The kid is nowhere to be seen.
Lost the kids.
But so, if you let yourself be a kid, it's really any age. And
That's fantastic. You ever have like adults want to just, hey, can we rent the space for an hour? We want to have a team building event.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
And we've had the Young Professionals
Okay.
local event. We've had 15, 16-year-olds have overnight birthday parties there.
Wow.
Bring all their friends
Oh,
and play.
fun.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Lots of fun.
All right. We'll come back and conclude this interview. We'll just have a couple of seconds. So I'll ask you about attendance per year at the Curious Kids Museum. I think people are going to be surprised. We'll have that in just a moment right here on WSJM.
Bank, your hometown community bank. Visit Sturgis.bank to learn more. Qualifications, rules, and limitations apply. Rates, rewards, and restrictions may vary by account. Contact Sturgis Bank for details. Member FDIC.
The Morning Show with Ken Lundberg on WSJM.
Where did the time go? We have just about 40 seconds here before we have to wrap it up. We've been talking with Lori Marciniak, Executive Director of the Curious Kids Museum. Lori, a couple more questions. One is, how many people come through your doors every year at Curious Kids?
At Curious Kids, we get about 75,000 people a year. Down at the Discovery Zone, another 30,000.
Wow.
So
you're talking about over 100,000 people per year.
Yes, and that doesn't count all of the classrooms and daycares and places we take mobile exhibits out in our outreach program.
And final question before we go, where can people find more information?
Facebook, Instagram, and www.CuriousKidsMuseum.org.
All right, Lori Marciniak, thank you for joining us today. We've enjoyed this discussion. It's 8 o'clock. ABC News, local news next.
From ABC News, I'm Sherry Preston.
Okay, and thank you so much for joining us,
thank
Lori.
you.
Any final parting words for folks on the video live stream?
We're just super excited, and we hope everybody else is excited for a bigger, better children's museum in St. Joe, Michigan for the next 35 years.
And if people want to help, whether that's financial or otherwise, what should they do?
They can reach out to me. They can call the museum and get contact information, or reach out via our website. There's contact forms or Facebook messages, those kind of things.
Okay, well, we will please give us updates. We would love to keep people informed of what's happening. And your footprint is grown huge. I mean, you've got down on below the bluff, you've got above the bluff, and now you've got the Priscilla Upton Burns area as well. So lots of stuff going on. That must be really exciting.
It's so exciting. It's so much fun to serve the community and the children in the community.
Well, thank you for doing it. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Lori Marciniak, Executive Director with Curious Kids. That ends our live stream today. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate you. And we'll be back tomorrow. Thanks.